Por favor, pedimos a todos los asistentes que tomen su asiento. Por favor, pedimos a todos los asistentes que tomen sus asientos.
Mona makari thapuru ba mona mari masih harmonisa puna mari masih baita bena masih kia hang baita dai baita bena mona mari bena tskena makari thapuru ba hei sa koi tha ne ma hai jara se koi tha bai koi tha mar ma sabda koi tha mar sabda ma koi tha tra hei so dai rara sang pida cheke toro ya bai oro po tau da bena toro ya eu ha cheke tashina cheke baraya bai oro po tau da bena toro ya tu cheke bara sero cheke bara eu ha cheke baraya ani mana cheke baraya bai oro po tau da bena toro dai rana ka ri ba tau mai dai chame pida cheke toro dai eu ha cheke baraya be ya dai ya o ni ra bena dai be ya boro ra rayo da barai cheke boro dai Orlando rayo cheke baraya da boro ya koto baraya kuita boro mai Sí, ¿sabes? ¿Sabes? Cuita María, cuita ya veo. Vai wari hace se que para ya, vai uda para cui, tana maya na makai kuto para cuita para ya, dai ya. Pito que para, vai ora bo taura para toro dai. Ha pari ba tau, hai che ka toro, ha pari ba tau, dai ra. Dai ba ye da para toro dai. Ha pari ba tau, dai. Colombiano cheque toro ya, dai ayuda, dai bata pena ya, ja caribata dai. Mira, ahí va, un aplauso a todos para allá. Pues que tal, ahí va a ver nada. Bueno, muchas gracias.
Reciban un caluroso saludo de la...
Please accept our warm greetings from the 7th Review of the Indigenous Peoples in the Permanent Bureau of the 116 Indigenous peoples who are part of the territory of Colombia. Indigenous peoples from the jungle, from the mountains, from the seas. Please receive this cordial greeting from us, your brothers and sisters from these 7 cultural regions that are brought here together today. The governor, the mayor of the department of the valley, our president, Gustavo, who is part of this very important work of how can we conserve nature, how can we preserve biodiversity. Today is a chance for the indigenous peoples to invite you here to understand our life, to see the biodiversity and how we've been able to conserve 88%. And here we're speaking about our brothers and sisters throughout the world and how we've been able to conserve this system of knowledge and how we will continue to achieve the peace that we want. How amongst humanity can we work together as brothers and sisters hand in hand with nature? This is the path that we must walk. It shouldn't just be for Colombia to balance nature, to sustain life, and to continue to be guardians of this territory, which is the lungs of the whole of the world, to invite all of you that indigenous peoples were making an appeal and the indigenous knowledge. How will we continue to provide responses when we see that the life of the planet is being killed, not just people themselves, but life on the planet? We have to continue looking after nature and the ways in which we can maintain this balance between man and nature. We invite you, while we are here, let's deliberate together as people who live here on this earth. We have to maintain the earth because without it, we are nothing. Everything that we have around us, we must preserve it. And how, as human beings, how can we sustain life on the earth? Because that's what will sustain us. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much. And Orlando Rayo, for these words, we're now going to have a cultural performance for the inaugural ceremony about water and about the earth. And this was a creation presented by the National Center for Arts for COP16. And the protagonists are the indigenous peoples, the Afro-descendant communities, campesinos, women, young people, artists, and those who are guardians of nature. As you will be able to appreciate, this performance is under the same structure and has 4 moments, particular moments: original law, songs of water, whispers of the earth, and the tree of life. And through music, dance, and words, as well as images, we are inviting you to think about the importance of maintaining the balance between humanity and nature to preserve our common home, Mother Earth.
Dayidrua Sobía, Kirunchavía, nuestra tierra de corazón bonito y pensamiento bueno.
Ati Seineka. Kak Gemri. Mibisaku nano. Aja mibiurak. Ikujina. Pinzanek bin Pujari. Kagam du Chukwa. Hermanos de todas las naciones.
Brothers of all nations, let's make an effort to save our earth.
Wayakana shipira tumaka. Es wunu. Es muru. Es wuti. Kawayu. Tumaka no swakororo. Wayaskoro tumaka. No hofia. No hosparis. No hofia. No swakoya es umo. Es swakoya ya. Wairai. Wanuikaga. Ashanka hawa. Kusha tuwakoipa. Suma. Huya. Suama.
Basta de la muerte que nos quiere
Enough of the death around us that wishes to do away with us. Allow us to preserve our territory. We've been protecting it for life. Why can we not prolong it? We've taken care of Mother Earth. If the earth is destroyed, then we will also be destroyed, because we are so linked with our animals. They gave us our first breath of air. In the fluidity of its waters and the soil.
También a la madre tierra nos duele su herida, su destrucción.
Its destruction, its pollution, and we owe everything to it.
Oye, mamá, ni hablan los cielos, cruje la tierra, ni hablan los ríos, yo voy al mar. Yo voy al mar. Oye, mamá, se abren los cielos. Oye, mamá, de la tierra. Oye, y hablan los ríos. Oye, yo voy al mar. Yo voy al mar. Oye, mamá. Oye, mamá. Oye, 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 mamá. Oye, se abren los cielos. Oye, oye, la tierra. Me hablan los ríos. Yo voy al mar. Oye, 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 mamá. Oye, 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 mamá. Oye, mamá.
esta guerra, apagó la mirada y silenció la palabra.
War silences words, but it could not destroy our roots. Very slowly, we manage to take life again from the flowers of the jungle, from the songs of the parrots who sing to us, and the jaguars who are there for us in the jungle. War destroys the future, but don't forget that in this present, we are still here, and we have our spirits who are keeping our memory, and we are trying to be guardians of this beautiful Mother Earth.
Duna, Duna, Duna.
¡Paz con la naturaleza!
Ubuntu H.
Agradecemos a
Thank you so much to these artists for this cultural performance, which was led by the Ministry of the Arts under the management of the Center for Arts of Olivera Zapata. And Colombia is known as a beautiful country, very noted as being one of the most megabiodiverse countries in the world, with a great variety of fauna and flora. And for the first time in the history of COPs, a flower is the official logo. The Inaugural flower is also known as the eternal flower, and it is the image of COP16. And you will see this flower on every one of the chairs in this hall, and it's endemic, and it comes from the Mavacure Hills in the department of Guanilla, and the full heart of the Amazon jungle, and it tries hard to face the adversities of its surroundings, and is able to show its splendor even in extremes of drought and flood. Its vibrant petals enshrine the 23 targets of the global framework of biodiversity and symbolize the 13 strategic ecoregions of our Colombia, which is in our national development plan. It's a flower which is an island of fertility, and which, even when it's cut, lasts longer than others and conserves its structure. The Inirida flower invites us to unite, to reconcile amongst each other, and to establish lasting peace with nature. With this symbol, COP16 in Colombia has consolidated this message of sustaining and maintaining life on this planet. Since 7th of August 2022, when he took over the mandate for the government of change, Colombia, Global Power for Life, President Gustavo Petro had raised his voice in all of the scenarios of the world to bring together governments and society in general, given the challenge of the climate crisis, which threatens survival for humanity. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now listen to the words of the President of the Republic of Colombia, Gustavo Petro Urrego.
Un saludo
A warm greeting, a very special one, to the 196 countries represented here, ambassadors, heads of diplomatic missions, representatives of the international accredited organizations, and the organizations of the United Nations. The Minister for Ecology and Environment of China, Huang Yongqiu, the Vice President of the Republic of Colombia, Dr. Francia Marica and her distinguished family, Governor Ivian Francisco Torp, the Mayor of Santiago de Cali, Alejandro Eder, and his wife, Taliana, directors, ministers, civil servants of the national government, members of the armed forces, of the police, governors, members of Congress, mayors, all present here, communication media, both international and national, and indeed to everyone here, all of those who are assisting us and who are listening via streaming. Welcome to the opening of COP16. As you will have seen, this is the country of beauty. Those who are descendants of the Tiron people in the Sierra Nevada of St. Marta, it is the heart of the world, living in the mountains that go right up to the perpetual snows in the highest levels in Colombia, which can take 2 or 3 days to get to the Caribbean, which has all of the different climates you can find on Earth, with all of the different types of vegetation, all of the beauty that you can imagine, and the cold crystal waters until you arrive at the warm seas, the heart of the world. When I was young, I went up to these Sierras, and I used to walk along these paths and remember meeting the indigenous peoples, and was proud to note that I was in the heart of the world. And it came to me, to my mind, I have seen Papamondists and have seen the sculptures that are in accordance with economies, the intensity of life, and the descendants. I note that they are right, and they continue to be right, in Indochina, in the Philippines. If I turn to my right, I look at Africa, Congo, South Africa, and we are right in the exact center of the planetary biodiversity. We are at the heart between North America and South America. We are the center between China, Indonesia, Madagascar, Europe, and its biodiversity. Perhaps we could call us the heart of the world, because we are the heart of life on this planet. And the indigenous peoples of the Tiron people, that I am the president of the heart of the world, and that our battle is one for life itself. They gave me the idea of being a global power for life, with a national destiny for humanity. And with those, we are discovering that the only reason for being with humanity is life itself. That's our reason for being, our raison d'etre, and we should not destroy life. We are intelligent ourselves, and we're not talking about dead artificial intelligence. We need to expand life, not cut it down. But it seems that today we are moving to find our own reason to be alive. When we ask the question, what's affecting life the most on this planet today, we can only state that we are the ones who are causing the destruction. It seems to be a fantastical idea. There seems to be one type of humanity which is going against what humanity is. Humanity against life is humanity that will do away with humanity. And in the tens of thousands who have been destroyed by bombs in Gaza, in Lebanon, the tens of thousands of youth who do not reach to live life beyond their youth. Sophia, our daughter, who is here in Candelaria, was raped and killed by her neighbor just recently in the nearby area. And this shows the way in which the fabric of our life is turning into violence. And the immense social inequality that we see in this small part of the earth, artificial intelligence, which is managing how these bombs fall, and artificial intelligence, which has no regulation, which generates enormous productivity without human beings themselves. And then that means that human beings themselves have no jobs. An expansion of artificial intelligence with so much energy that is given to information, trying to take advantage of human intellect in this artificial intelligence, which can generate a virtual happiness in the midst of the barbarity and the destroyed lives that we see around us. These anti-cultural instruments and the beginning of the end of life is nigh. We all know well that artificial intelligence has no regulation by human beings, no regulation constructed that is rational and collectively agreed to by all of the peoples of the world. Artificial intelligence, which today uses dirty fossil fuels such as coal, oil, gas, when artificial intelligence uses oil, coal, and gas, we see the collapse with the use of artificial intelligence, and we are moving further and further, closer and closer to Armageddon. Universal unemployment, earnings that are beyond historic records, destruction of the climate, separation of the human being from reality. All of these constitute the various elements of the end of life as we know it. But it's not just humans who are responsible. It would be an ideological falsehood and fantastical to state what is not true. Those who are the owners of artificial intelligence and who are causing this climate change are the very same. They are some mega powerful oligarchs who wish to be the owners of intelligence without life and who are able to send off spaceships, but as they destroy humanity, they are 1% of the planet. The wealth can be measured in dollars and in carbon dioxide equivalents. These have been synonymous of 2 centuries between the most rich on the planet and those who are the most poor. Our consumption, our production, our carbon dioxide, and then fossil fuels, which are becoming ever dirtier. The mode of production today is one which includes ever greater consumption of fossil fuels, which produces ever more carbon dioxide, which is what leads directly to global warming. The growth in wealth brings alongside it the end of life if we continue to use coal, petrol, and oil, which paradoxically is the main chemical element of what we require, is also leading to widespread death of humanity. Capital, wealth have broken such a delicate balance, which is fundamental in terms of existence, and that is the climate. In a certain form, this movement towards wealth is on the point of destroying life itself. It's a contradiction, and it should be analyzed not only by science, but through economic theory, but also by culture and by policies. Culture and policies are the momentum for society and its parts. This rapid movement of humanity, just transforming ever more rapidly to increase the accumulation, and yet we need to move towards decarbonization. When we look at a forum like this, the free market should be able to bring the maximization of well living and to bring human beings. But those who keep looking up and those who don't look up or keep their heads in the sand and note the facts without analyzing, and those who deny the fact that the extinction of biodiversity has begun, to stop this accumulation of capital, of wealth in front of the spectre of death, means that we need to make a global revolution for humanity. The revolutionary flag today is the word life. And we must make sure that we move towards decarbonization, and this means a revolution, because we have to immediately come away from the neoliberal era, neoliberalism in all of its forms. This is the integral part of the paradigm that is necessary so that life and humanity can continue. Freedom, the free market does not bring us to wealth for everyone. The mercantile way brings us to the highest level of slavery. It carries its chains. Life itself is condemned to disappearing. In order to have a market which does not kill, we need to regulate it properly. We need to have public powers which are strong and which are able to serve humanity. Those who shout for freedom now are enslaved and are bringing us to the market. The buyer is a spectre of death. Crying out freedom, freedom, we have to liberate the life of these spectres, these ghosts, a life which does not be on its knees, which is not sold, which is not being exploited. We need to change the way in which we run our finances in this world. And that is the slogan of this forum. These are linked to the code, to death. Who states that life on this planet can be saved only through bankable projects, is saying projects linked to the rate of interest, projects that provide earnings and profits And this goes against the code. What we need to overcome the climate crisis or the issues of artificial intelligence. If we were to do this, this will only take us to the same. It's fundamental to change debt for climate action. We cannot run the risk as a criterion of measure of the rate of interest or continue with loans. We need to lower the debt. It is crucial we do so if the capital funds and the pension funds of those rich and wealthy countries continue to show profits in the economies of poor countries, that will leave humanity without the instruments to go beyond these crises. The risky economies are those which can exterminate the life today and those which emit the most carbon dioxide, using fossil fuels, using oil, and using gas. And these are powerful regimes of the United States, China, and Europe, because they charge so much at interest prices to countries which are not able to do this. And the atmosphere is absorbed through our jungle and our forests, through our biodiversity, through the story of biodiversity. We have accumulated the cultures of humanity, as you could see in the performance that we have just seen for this COP. So all of the assemblies of world are fighting for the heart of the world, which is what we call Colombia. Only by changing the risks, by climate action, can we finance the Marshall Plan that humanity requires now. We need to decarbonize the totality of our economies. Those who are carrying out the risk of absorbing carbon dioxide and the mega rich. This is a very real contradiction in terms. These are the rich predators who are getting taxes for eliminating carbon from production and consumption, with taxes on the predator. With the change for debt for climate action, we can move to new modes of production, to a relationship that's different between human beings with regard to production and to wealth, to a different way of conserving and working with wealth, and not in fossil energies that lead to death, but clean energies that can be felt more than held, more than accumulation of culture, of things, of objects. It is vital for humanity to be in the front line to respond to young mothers who want to make sure they give life. And I believe that youth should be able to come to the front line and to serve the feminine. And we who used to be warriors need to make sure that we're at the beginning, at the front line. And it's a battle which is only just starting now. And it's not about conquering land or slavery. It's the great battle of life, which Colombia would like to be part of, because here we're in the heart of the world. Thank you so much for your attention.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much, President. And now we will hear the opening words of the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres.
I thank the government of Colombia for hosting this important COP. The COP to make peace with nature, and the first since countries adopted the historic Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. The framework is grounded in a clear truth. For humanity to thrive, nature must flourish. Destroying nature inflames conflict, anger and disease, fuels poverty, inequality and the climate crisis, and damages sustainable development, green jobs, cultural heritage, and GDP. A collapse in nature services, such as pollination and clean water, would see the global economy lose trillions of dollars a year with the poorest, hardest hit. The Global Biodiversity Framework promises to reset relations with Earth and its ecosystems. But we are not on track. Your task at this COP is to convert words into action. That means countries presenting clear plans that align national actions with all the framework's targets. It means agreeing a strengthened monitoring and transparency framework. And it means honoring promises on finance and accelerating support to developing countries. You must leave Cali with significant investments in the Global Biodiversity Framework Fund and commitments to mobilize other sources of public and private finance to deliver the framework in full. And those profiting from nature must contribute to its protection and restoration. Developing countries are being plundered. Digitized DNA from biodiversity underpins scientific discoveries and economic growth. But developing countries don't gain fairly from these advances, despite being home to extraordinary riches. This COP must operationalize the mechanism that has been agreed to ensure that when countries share genetic information, they share the benefits equitably. It must engage all of society as la COP de la gente, and it must strengthen the role of indigenous peoples and local communities. Indigenous peoples are the world's great guardians of biodiversity, luminaries of sustainable use. Their knowledge and stewardship must be at the heart of biodiversity action at every level. Excellencies, we have a plan to rescue humanity from a degraded Earth. I look forward to seeing you in person at the end of the COP to hear how you have delivered, and I thank you.
Agradecemos las palabras.
Thank you very much to the Secretary General of the United Nations. COP16, Peace with Nature, is a call to deliberate, to improve the relationship that we have with the environment and to take up urgent action that will bring about preservation of biodiversity, peace, as well as life on this planet. Now we give the floor to the Minister of Ecology and Environment of the Popular Republic of China, Mr. Huang Rongqiu.
Your Excellency, President of Colombia, Mr. Pedro Orrego, Your Excellency, Vice President Marquez, Your Excellency, Foreign Minister Murillo, Your Excellency, Minister Mohammed, Governor of Valle de Cauca, Ms. Dilian Toro, Mayor of Cali, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. In the vibrant city of Cali, we gathered together to hold COP16 of the Convention on Biodiversity. On behalf of the Chinese government, as president of COP15, I warmly congratulate you on the successful convening of today's event and extend a sincere welcome to all delegates and guests. I deeply appreciate the efforts of the Colombian and Cali governments and people in organizing this event. The theme of COP16, Peace with Nature, aligns with COP15's theme, Ecological Civilization, building a shared future for all life on Earth. It closely reflects the goals and vision of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework and embodies China's long-standing commitment to harmonious coexistence between humanity and nature and a shared future for mankind. Biodiversity is the cornerstone of mankind's survival and development, forming the lifeblood of Earth community of life. Protecting biodiversity safeguards human well-being and drives sustainable development. However, the Earth ecosystem faces unprecedented damage, with 100 million hectares of tropical forests and over 85% of wetlands lost, and 25% of species at risk of extinction. To effectively protect biodiversity after long and challenging negotiations, the second phase of COP15 in December 2022 achieved a historic package of decisions, including the Kunming-Montreal framework. It sets highly ambitious goals for biodiversity protection and restoration, and financial and resource mobilization, embodying the vision of global biodiversity conservation and vision, and providing strategic guidance for advancing global biodiversity governance. This is a shared victory and a triumph for humanity's dream of building a community of life on Earth. The success of COP15 and the Kunming-Montreal framework is inseparable from the strong support of UNEP, CBD Secretariat, parties, stakeholders, and the active contribution of all who champion biodiversity protection. I still remember clearly of the late nights of intense negotiations, especially the moment when I struck the gavel heavily at the closing ceremony, announcing the adoption of the Kunming-Montreal framework. I remember the hall erupted in thunderous applause as thousands of participants cheered and embraced each other in celebration. People are celebrating together for success, for the joint achievements. Taking this opportunity, as President of COP15, I sincerely thank all parties for their dedication and contribution to this achievement. Looking back, since the conclusion of COP16 in Sharm el-Sheikh in November 2018, China has served as the presidency of COP15. Despite the challenges of COVID-19, China hosted the first phase of COP15 in Kunming in 2021, including the World Leaders Summit. We successfully concluded with the Kunming-Montreal framework. In 2022, we successfully held the second phase in Montreal, Canada, leading to the adoption of the historic Kunming-Montreal framework. Today, in Colombia, we've seen that Colombia has taken over the baton, and that COP16 has seen its successful beginning in Cali. The journey has not been easy. China has been the longest serving presidency in CBD history. Similarly, as the rest of the world, China has consistently provided positive momentum for global biodiversity conservation. President of China, Mr. Xi Jinping, placed great importance on COP15, personally guiding its preparation and progress. He participated in the conference twice via video, delivering speeches announcing the establishment of the Kunming Fund, and also put forward his 4-point proposals to strengthen the biodiversity conservation. His leadership provided political confidence, inspired all parties, and showcased China's commitment to be a responsible global leader. Although the 6 years of COP15 presidency has been difficult and arduous, through the Kunming-Montreal framework, we have seen the spirit of unity, inclusiveness, and cooperation. We have strengthened communication and dialogue to jointly reverse the trend of biodiversity loss and put it on the road to recovery. Through the framework, we've seen ambition and action. We've taken practical actions to build a community for mankind. Through the framework, we've witnessed the future and the hope, and that man and nature are coexisting together, and we're leaving a beautiful, clean world for the rest of the world. Meanwhile, we deeply feel that the role of the COP15 presidency is not just an honor, but more of a responsibility. China has always spared no effort to contribute Chinese wisdom and strength to global biodiversity conservation with the highest political will and the strongest practical actions. We continue to lead and sustain the political momentum of the framework. By spearheading its implementation initiative, we're committed to build a voluntary cooperation platform that strengthens collective political will and advances global biodiversity governance. So far, nearly 30 parties and stakeholders have responded positively to the initiative. We warmly welcome others to continue to join and participate in the implementation of the initiative, working together to advance effective, inclusive, and sustainable global biodiversity conservation along with Colombia. We announced the creation of the Kunming Biodiversity Fund during the first phase of COP15. President Xi Jinping made the announcement, and China took the lead by investing 1.5 billion Chinese yuan to set up Kunming Fund. In May this year, we signed a cooperation agreement with UNEP and UN Multilateral Fund Office in Beijing, thus officially launching the Kunming Biodiversity Fund. This year, we have allocated 50 million Chinese yuan in funding, with the first 8 projects approved. We hope more countries will contribute funds. We hope that all countries will conduct collaborations of all sorts with Kunming to jointly support the biodiversity conservation efforts of developing countries. China has released the China National Biodiversity Conservation Strategy Action Plan 2023 to 2030 and BSAP in January, aligning it with the goals outlined in the framework. This updated plan sets China's biodiversity conservation goal for 2030 to 2035, outlining 4 priority areas, 27 priority actions, and 75 priority projects. As a result, we became the first developing country to complete MPSAP update following the adoption of KMGBF. We encourage more parties to submit and update their MBSAPs promptly, aligning their national actions with KMGBF to collectively advance the goals outlined in the framework. China has strengthened ecological civilization and biodiversity conservation. Guided by this concept, biodiversity conservation has become a national strategy for China, allowing China to mainstream biodiversity and achieve significant successes in conservation efforts. Currently, China's terrestrial ecological conservation red line covers over 30% of the land area, and a system of nature conservation dominated by natural parks have been established. 90% of terrestrial ecological types and 74% of key wildlife populations, flora and fauna, are effectively protected, contributing to the ongoing recovery of biodiversity. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, global biodiversity issues are becoming increasingly severe, with climate change, biodiversity loss, environmental pollution representing the triple planetary crisis facing humanity. These interconnected challenges are affecting each other. Therefore, we require a comprehensive, coordinated, and holistic approach to effectively address them. COP16 represent a significant step forward towards enhancing our cooperation and making progress in our effort to respond to global environmental challenges. My dear friend, Minister Susanna Mohammed is about to take over as president of COP16. I trust that under her leadership and coordination, we will achieve the desirable outcome. China and I personally pledge our full support to Colombia and Minister Mohammed to make COP16 a success. Chinese President Xi Jinping said, "No strength is greater than the solidarity of hearts and unity of efforts." We've seen a path fraught with challenges and hardship looking back, but practice has repeatedly proven that as long as we work as one, our efforts can combine into a powerful force to bring out consensus. Our collective journey towards global biodiversity conservation is long. It calls for more robust actions and wiser strategies on our part to chart a viable pathway towards biodiversity on our planet, teeming with life. In the city of Cali, we're embarking on another leg of the journey. Let us join hands to promote jointly the recovery and flourishing of global biodiversity and leave a vibrant planet to future generations. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, señor ministro.
Thank you very much, Minister. As we continue, we will now listen to the intervention of the Minister for the Environment and Sustainable Development of the Republic of Colombia, Susan Mohammed, one of the drivers of this event that is being set up. Good afternoon, everyone. President Gustavo Petro, Vice President Francia Marquez, President of COP16, the Minister from China, councillors, ministers, the Mayor of Cali, and all of the delegates who have in such a decisive manner accepted the call from the government of Colombia to come here. It was just by chance that we had 2 years of environmental discussions in Latin America, COP16 in Cali, Colombia on biodiversity, and COP30 on the climate in Brazil. However, perhaps there is no such a thing as coincidence, coming from a country in which, after 60 years of armed conflict, with this great cultural diversity of different peoples, of crossroads, one of the most highest levels of biodiversity in the world, but which for decades we ourselves were not able to appreciate, since we were suffering the terrible consequences of conflict, of war, of massacre, of genocide, which also took place. A country that was seeking a chance to breathe and has been able to learn with wonder that we have so much and that we are one of the most biodiverse countries in the whole of the world. But today we still face a challenge. How can we consolidate in these areas, in these biomes, in this country, which is at the same time on the Pacific, Andean, Caribbean, and Ignorant Sensei? And how can we consolidate peace? We realized that you cannot achieve peace within the country without full inclusion of the biodiversity, of the specific knowledge, without making sure that we make peace with nature. And it is from our own experience, from this quest ourselves, that, as our president Gustavo Petro said, that we are in the heart of the world. We have become the host of this meeting to bring you all here to make peace with nature in a dark moment, a bleak moment, we see that the way forward is not political, is not through war. It is working with the other and including the other. And while we waste time and resources that are disappearing through war, but which are so necessary for our climate transition and the complex agreements that are required, we must find a change in our vision, in this paradigm. And this peace with nature means that there must be a conceptual change in terms of our values. Nature is not a resource. Nature is the fiber of life itself, and we must make it possible. And it also means that we could, together with the legacy that we received from the President of China, the Kunming-Montreal Biodiversity Global Framework, which is a basis for multilateralism, which was an important part of international negotiations, which has generated mobilization of all of the stakeholders in society, which has generated curiosity across all of the sectors of government, because caring for biodiversity is not just for the Minister of the Environment, but which requires also mobilization of the whole of society. And under this slogan, this framework, the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, we can go forward. It's not just an issue of mechanisms for implementation. It is at the very basis to recompose the model of development, to rediscover, to change how we can find out how we can live together in a system that does not permanently use nature as a victim of development, that on the contrary reproduces life. And this can be seen to be a great risk. The climate risk, the risk of loss of biodiversity that causes disasters in 25% of the area of the world, which is being used for production. But it can also be a chance to work together for innovation, for seeking answers. How can we think again as to how society, the economy, all of the ways in which we live, the whole logic of what development really is, means that we must work with nature. And this question, to which we don't have a clear response yet, requires very much care. We have seen how we can accelerate the transition in terms of energy. How can we accelerate decarbonization, which is so fundamental, because if we do not establish climate and balance our climate, then the components of our ecosystem will not be able to adapt to the new conditions. However, this transition cannot be at the cost of nature. This confluence needs to find in nature its greatest ally for these transitions. These are two important movements that need to take place at the same time: decarbonizing and recovering the loss of nature, and to establish it once again so that nature is able to take control of the force of life on this planet. And it is not simply a rhetorical question. The extraction of resources, the extraction of natural resources is generating 50% of the greenhouse gases. But at the very same time, it means that 90% is causing the loss of biodiversity. But on the other hand, to recover the ecosystems and nature can also contribute in almost 40% of the solution for rebalancing the system. And so these are two agendas that can work hand in hand. One is not to be sacrificed at the altar of the other. And this is where the political forum should think about these regulations, these processes, these agreements, the multilateral agreements, so that we can work together and generate these two movements at the same time. I would like to give the most warmest greetings to you from Cali, Colombia. It is a region of the most diverse, culturally speaking and ecologically speaking, not only in Colombia, but of the planet as a whole. And that's why in this COP16, where we are invited to make peace with nature, it could not be conceivable without diversity and the addition of all of the knowledge that we have. We're in a situation where there is much doubt. We need to bring together all of the civilizations, all of the knowledge, and it's this dialogue between ancestral knowledge and the countries themselves, sharing our knowledge of the ecology of life with the scientific abilities that we can generate a transition, not to go back to the past, but to at least generate the right harmonious living conditions for a new society. We'll be able to come out of the crisis, but this requires the mobilization of the peoples themselves, and this is why we have brought COP16, the COP of the people, here in a meeting yesterday of more than the 100 meetings in COP that have taken place, so that civil society can take part in this, and it doesn't just take place here. A young girl of 16 years spoke to us about how she had been working with ants for several years. After observing them realized that they are of different sizes, different colors, different behavior, and talked to us with great emotion, but also asked a question. I was asked, how can these ants, which do not speak, are able to coordinate and organize themselves to build great things? Let's hope that COP16 will be the very first place where we can imitate these ants and mobilize so that we achieve peace with nature. Welcome, welcome, and thank you for your support for a successful outcome for COP16.
Muchas gracias, señora ministra.
Thank you very much, Minister. And now I would like to ask the governor of the Biodiversity, who is accompanied by Jorge Octavio Guzman, the governor of the Department of Chocó, and Nubia Carolina Cordova, and the governor of Nariño, Luis Alfonso Escobar. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to thank you for coming to Biodiversity in the Pacific. I would like to thank President Gustavo Petro Urrego, the Vice President of the Republic of Colombia, and Francia Marquez Miña for the Ministry of the Environment and Ecology of the People's Republic of China, the Colombian Foreign Ministry, Roberto Murillo, the ambassador of the mission of Colombia to the United Nations organizations, Mr. Leon Dordre, and Mrs. Astruchimenko, those Laura Camila, to our Minister for the Environment and for Sustainable Development for the Republic of Colombia, Susan Mohammed, and the Mayor of Cali, who has gone hand in hand with us for this work, Alejandro Eder, Minister of the Interior, Fernando Cristo, and the highest levels of the army, and those delegates who have visited us. Thank you so much and welcome. I would like, first of all, to thank President Gustavo Petro Urrego, the Ministry of the Environment, and the Chancellery for having trusted Valle del Cauca and Cali as the capital of the Pacific in Colombia to carry out this event, which is unprecedented in the history of our country. Thank you for setting your eyes on our paradise and being our co-teammates in this purpose of making peace with nature. In this and in all cases, you can rest assured that in the Valle del Cauca, we are ready to take on all the challenges that we decide to face together. We'd also like to thank the United Nations and the Conference of the Parties for the trust they've placed in our region throughout all these months as the venue for this global event, which pays tribute to the environmental, ethnic, and cultural richness that have made this department a biodiversity paradise in Colombia and the world, and particularly in our region, which is a global, we have, you'll be able to live and feel the biodiversity. And we say this because starting today, there will be 2 weeks for you who visit Cali, Valle del Cauca, and the Pacific to live and feel our biodiversity. And we say this because, first of all, this region, with only 2% of the country's surface, has a concentration of 22% of all the biodiversity of Colombia. And an example of this are the 17,000 species of flora and fauna that have been identified in this region. We are located on 2 hubs of biodiversity, the biogeographic Chocó and the tropical Andes, which give us attributes such as having 9 types of soil, from alluvial, volcanic, clay, saline, moorland, bathed by 25 hydrographic subzones, of which 47 are direct tributaries to the majestic Cauca River and 9 to the Pacific Ocean. We have hundreds of wetlands, such as the Sonso Lagoon, which in 2017 received the certificate accrediting it as a Ramsar area of international importance. And we're a department that takes care of its most precious treasures. That's why we have 227 protected areas that represent about 28% of the total of our territory. Within them, we have 14 national protective forest reserves, 9 natural parks, and we will soon be at the level of 30% of protected areas, and we will be able to conserve their ecosystems. We have 14 national protected forest reserves, 9 natural parks, 184 civil society natural reserves. We also have 4 national natural parks, such as Farallones, and the National Natural Park of Uramba and Bahia Malaga, and Las Hermosas are sanctuaries of flora and fauna, which is recognized as an important bird conservation area and natural world heritage site by UNESCO. We also have 31,942 hectares of mangroves, which represent one of our greatest riches in the Pacific coast of Valle del Cauca, and is a source of environmental, cultural, and pride. Secondly, the Valle del Cauca is a region of extraordinary cultural richness with unique characteristics in each of its sub-regions. For example, in the north, we stand out for a strong artisan tradition, especially in embroidery and weaving, The center of the department is recognized for its religious devotion as well as its link to agriculture and peasant tradition. While in the southern zone, there's an intense cultural mix with Afro-descendants, indigenous, and mestizo influences that are expressed in music, salsa, gastronomy, urban art, and the modern cultural movement. In the Pacific region, mainly in Buenaventura and its surroundings, lies the heart of the Afro-descendant culture of Valle del Cauca and the continent, where Pacific music such as the curulao and the alabaos and the ancestral practices of fishing, agriculture, and the production of viche reflect a worldview which is deeply connected to nature and to the ocean. Each of these areas of Valle del Cauca have their own cultural identity, which together give shape to our paradise for all. We have been recognized 3 times by UNESCO for the music from the Pacific, for knowledge, skills, and practices associated with midwifery, and a 3rd for our coffee culture landscape. No less important is that we have a cheerful, hospitable, and hardworking human resource with whom you can share experiences, learning, and ancestral knowledge of our communities. For all this, when any of you are asked, where is the paradise for conservation and biodiversity? The answer is Valle del Cauca, our beloved land that from today and forever you can consider as your home. This wealth, of course, entails a responsibility for us as governments and society, and what better place than this World Summit on Sustainability and Biodiversity to continue advancing in the construction of an interinstitutional model of environmental governance based on work carried out between the public and private sectors, academia, citizens represented by local communities, indigenous peoples, Afro-descendants, and social organizations. The Valle del Cauca has demonstrated a strong commitment to the fight against climate change, and our policies have been nurtured with innovative approaches such as the bioeconomy and the circular economy. We also work to promote the conversion to environmentally friendly practices such as agroecology, agroforestry, and regenerative agriculture to promote fundamental ecosystem services such as the regulation of water use. Through our actions, we have directly had an impact on 17 of the 23 targets of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, highlighting areas such as ecosystem conservation, sustainable water management, endangered species restoration, pollution reduction, and the promotion of inclusive participation. In addition, we have aligned our strategies with 13 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, ensuring a comprehensive focus. And our commitment is to leave present and future generations a green valley where economic development goes hand in hand with biodiversity protection, innovation, and environmental research. In this opening ceremony, I would like to call upon you to ensure that this COP16 does not remain just another international event, but that we assume from the different leaderships the challenge of leaving 3 legacies. First, concrete actions in environmental education to generate a citizen culture of recovery, protection, and conservation of socio-ecological systems, biodiversity, and natural heritage. Second, we require that this summit means for the region's efforts to mobilize international cooperation resources and the creation of a fund with which we can finance biodiversity protection policies, in addition to promoting the transition to sustainable economies that reward the work of the communities that are responsible for the care and defense of the environment. Third, the recognition that are responsible for the care and defense of the environment. Third, the recognition and visibility of the role of women as protectors and caretakers of biodiversity through affirmative actions that lead to an effective empowerment of the work they perform in the conservation of life. Once again, the recognition and the visibilization of the role of the woman as protectors and caretakers of biodiversity through affirmative actions that lead to an effective empowerment of the work they perform in the conservation of life. Once again, and fourth, a range of actions on biodiversity, which is a product of the working against illegal mining and drugs. Once again, welcome to our region, where we firmly believe that to live here is to have it all, and that as long as we hold hands together, there is no obstacle we cannot overcome and no goal that we cannot achieve. Please keep us in your memory and heart, all of the memories that you will take with you from Cali, Valle del Cauca and the Pacific, home of COP16, paradise of all. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, señora gobernadora y señores gobernadores.
Thank you so much, Madam Governor. Ladies and gentlemen, representatives of the Pacific region and Colombia, I'm now going to give the floor to the Mayor of Cali, Mr. Alejandro Eder.
Señor Presidente.
Mr. President, Mr. Gustavo Petro, Ms. Francia Marquez, Mr. or Minister of the Ecology and the Environment of China, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Colombia, Lucia Alberto Blanco, Madam Executive Secretary of the CBD, Ms. Astrid Shoemaker, ladies and gentlemen, diplomats, delegates, Madam Minister of the Environment and Sustainable Development of Colombia, Ms. Susana Mohammed, Madam Director of the Administrative Section of the Presidency of Colombia, Ms. Laura Camila Sarabia, ladies and gentlemen, agents of the government and state, representatives of the armed forces, of the police, Madam Governor, Francisca Cotova, Ms. Carolina Cordoba, Mr. Governor of Rio, Mr. Alfonso Escobar, Madam Natalia Vargas, ladies and gentlemen, representatives of the media, national, international, ladies and gentlemen,
Bienvenidos a Cali.
Welcome to Cali, the branch of heaven. It is an honor for me to welcome you all to COP16, an event that marks a turning point for humanity. Today, it's more than just an environmental summit. No, we are facing a unique opportunity, an opportunity to transform history, because we will remember this COP16 not only as a result of the decisions that we will make together for biodiversity and sustainability, but also for something a great deal more profound, namely reconciliation. Let us speak frankly. In recent years, our societies have faced divisions, conflicts, deep wounds, both between people and nature. Here in Colombia and in Latin America, this has certainly been the case, but not only here. Environmental deterioration is something that we have caused, and it is a break with the essential balances that sustain us as humanity. Illegal economies, such as the cocaine industry, legal mining, migration crisis, are all part and parcel of the main threats to biodiversity across our planet. We have been silent witnesses in the face of the way ecosystems have been exploited beyond measure. We have witnessed entire communities being displaced, how poverty, inequity, and inequality have continued to lacerate our societies. And that is why we are here today, because we believe that it is possible to heal all of these ills. This COP16 is an opportunity for us to reconcile our actions with nature, but also to reconcile with one another as human beings, as cities, as nations, and as inhabitants of this same earth. Cities bear the greatest responsibility in terms of the conservation of biodiversity on our planet. Indeed, 80% of the world's population lives in cities, and our behavior is threatening the sources of life. Unplanned urbanization, heat islands, low tree cover are just some of the consequences that fall upon us. And they have an impact on our water sources. I'm thinking of emblematic cities such as Johannesburg, Beijing, and indeed Mexico City. Cali is a city of megadiversity. It is the capital of the Pacific region of the Colombia. It's a living symbol of what reconciliation means. Now, for years now, we have experienced these issues of inequality, lack of opportunities, but today we have decided to change Cali, turn it into a city of hope. We are working to overcome these wounds and to recover Cali's place amongst the most representative cities in Latin America, a city where every effort is a step towards a fairer and indeed more inclusive society. Cali is connected to one of the most strategic ecosystems on the planet. I'm referring here to the biogeographic Choco. This is a natural corridor that crosses 5 countries. And yet, it's a region that very few know about and that has not had the global attention that it deserves, despite its biological importance. For this reason, today, our city invites the world to commit to the conservation of this great natural treasure. Being located here makes Cali an ecological and environmental powerhouse, a multi-ethnic and multicultural epicenter. Dancing is part of our essence. So among the more than 550 species of birds that can be seen in Cali, there is one that dances to the rhythm of salsa, the dancing tororoi, which was discovered only 7 years ago. We are a city of 7 rivers with more 280 springs. We have urban forests, protected areas which are very rich in flora and fauna. In our city, we have over 350,000 types of trees and hundreds of shades of green as part of our natural treasure. All different shades of green in our natural parks, including the Los Farallones National Natural Park, one of the most mega biodiverse places in the world. We are a biodiverse city, and this implies that we have to protect this natural resource. So we have decided to strengthen our Afro-Colombian and indigenous communities that for generations have dedicated themselves to caring for our territory. We have also decided to fight against the illegal exploitation of resources, which not only destroys the environment, but also provokes social tensions, dispossesses communities, and aggravates inequality. Our city is a city that has received the most foreign investment. Cali and Valle del Coco together contribute 10% of the national GDP, concentrating 18% of the national industry and 22% of the agro-industry here in the Valle del Cauca. Our city must therefore bear its responsibilities in keeping with what is at stake. Now, what better city, what better place in Cali could we have chosen to be the epicenter for this COP of reconciliation? Now, to reconcile is to heal, to restore what has been lost. And this COP of reconciliation is a unique opportunity to heal our wounds, to recognize our differences, and to build a future together, one where there is social justice, well-being and harmony with nature. A future in which development and conservation are compatible. A future in which sustainability is not an obstacle, but an opportunity to move forward, an opportunity to grow. Today, the eyes of the world are on Cali and Colombia. And from here, in the midst of this fertile land, from this vibrant city, I call upon the world and upon all of the leaders present to give up, to stop with the message of hate and division, and to replace these messages of hate with messages of unity and working together. And that's what we have been doing here in Cali. We have spared no efforts to ensure that our city again become a city of dynamism, that the members of our society reconcile with one another, and to promote greater environmental awareness. Now, as part of this, we formulated an environmental master plan to align urban growth with the protection of our biodiversity and thus become a sustainable Cali. This plan has the goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 30% over the coming few years. And this in cooperation with every sector, ranging from culture, infrastructure, academia, all the way through to mobility and transport. We have initiated a path towards decarbonization. Now, this is a plan that we adopted. A plan through which we also strike hard blows against those who threaten our biodiversity, and where in recent months we have achieved the closure of the largest illegal mine in the history of Colombia and in our Farallones National Natural Park, capturing those who threaten our resources and reconciling those who used to be exploiters, turning them instead into guardians of nature. So we have closed 4 mines, and we're going to close 6 more this year to put a final end to this illegal exploitation of our resources. Now, we also have a natural park in which we have a scientific research center for biodiversity. We want to strengthen regenerative tourism with the participation of local communities to better safeguard and preserve our ecosystems. Now, we are cooperating with the Humboldt Institute, with the University of Cali, and all those who stand ready to join us in this endeavor. We launched this replicable pilot project aimed at preserving nature from the threats posed by illegal actions. So we wish to welcome all of you. Come and see for yourselves that this city has committed itself to a sustainable future. Cali welcomes you with open arms. We have over 200 events planned for our citizens to ensure that the COP of Biodiversity become a COP of high citizen participation. A COP during which we will promote nature-based solutions, where we will be able to enjoy our natural cultural wealth. We will be able to transform our city and indeed protect our planet and end up with the planet that we want to have. May this COP16 be remembered not only for the technical solutions that we will discuss here, but also as for having been the place where biodiversity, which is fundamental for safeguarding life, is giving the relevance it deserves. I would like to thank the national government of Colombia. I'd like to thank the United Nations. I'd like to thank the president, Mr. Petro. Thank you so much for having trusted Cali. Thank you for having trusted its citizens and have us host this important event for mankind. Cali is where you belong, and reconciliation is the very first step on the path towards sustainability and social justice. I would like to convey my gratitude to all of you and to again welcome you to COP16, the COP of reconciliation.
Muchas gracias, señor alcalde. Para cerrar entonces.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So to conclude this major meeting, we are going to enjoy a cultural spectacle, sounds of nature, we are going to have an audio-visual presentation of the Colombian artist Virgin Conte, where threatened species come to life again, send a vibrant appeal to life. We have to focus on what unites us. Cultures, people, and calls for action, which are all extremely important to avoid the destruction of our planet.
Hoy estamos aquí en el país de la belleza y de la biodiversidad. Nos enfrentamos a grandes retos y ustedes, con sus conciencias, son la voz de la vida y representan la última oportunidad para hacer la paz con la naturaleza.